Hey YouTube, this is Team APS, and you're watching the Summer of Yu-Gi-Oh!
Whoa.
So today, we have a simple question, right, Paul?
Very simple.
Yeah. Were pendulums really that bad?
As all new summoning mechanics go, people don't like it at first. It was the same way with synchros. It was the same way with Xyz. This is stupid. I don't want to learn this. It's crazy. It's broken. It's unfair.
People ready to torch their decks and play Magic.
Links are getting it right now. Now, the thing about pendulums, though, is that, people were especially averse to them because it was kind of a new rule, new zones.
New cards.
Sort of mechanic thing. Were they really that bad? So we decided we would go through sort of the major pendulum archetypes, major decks, some of the major generic support that they got, and then also talk about the counterplay and the reasons why they, in my opinion, did not end up being nearly as...
Hey, Paul, let's save that for
I
know your position.
Well, with Performapals, they didn't start off great. They ended up getting better over time. Some people would cite, Pepe as the height of Performapals. And Perform Mages.
And Draco Pals.
Yeah, and Dracos, they all kind of were this mesh. But that deck actually got hit just a few weeks into its reign of terror. And then it just ended up being kind of a normal top tier deck. Cleforts were, I think, actually probably the most hated pendulum archetype.
Scout was suffocating.
Yeah, for good reason. I think, some people would argue that Scout being the whole one card scale, that was a problem because, it shouldn't be that easy. And later we got, what was it, Monkey Board. It's another thing.
One card scale started to happen.
I think though that Cleforts they never felt overly dominant though because they were always checked by other decks. Because Burning Abyss had a good matchup against them. Fire Lake was always able to destroy their scales, and so they were never able to really get a whole lot of momentum going against those matchups. And more than that, Cleforts existed in a tough time because it was Shadal's, Burning Abyss, Satellar Knights, Necroz came along. It never felt like Cleforts were the dominant force in the meta. They were always just one of the top decks.
Zephyr.
Yeah, I don't know.
That deck never really came into its own.
It was awkward.
It was just a bunch of cards that they didn't really work together
at all.
They're like, oh, you could search a Zephyr card, but what does these Zephyr cards really do? Well, they didn't have a win condition was they were the main issues.
And they went into their corresponding decks, Zephyraxi or whatever, and Yang Zings, and maybe Zephyr Pilica and Ritual Beast. But generally speaking, they didn't even work that well in the archetype they were based on. Yeah. So Zephyr, as a pendulum archetype, didn't really take off. Magispectors, that's one that actually did end up being pretty good, I'd say.
Yeah, Kieran.
Yeah, Kieran's good. I mean, really, the Magispector deck, I think, was something that people didn't like. They can't be destroyed by card effects. They can't be targeted. They kind of started, or were part of that big trend of untargetable monsters.
And if you got rid of them, they just went to the extras. They could summon it again.
They're going to come back, and they can make Chidori and Totem Bird. But I think that what people did begin to realize, a big weakness in Magispectors, they're slow. They really are. I mean, they're small monsters. You kind of have to just start off by normal summoning them, and takes a couple of turns to really ramp up the advantage. They aren't, they don't come off to me as how Pepe did in its prime, where you're making crazy fast combos. It was kind of just a slow rolly ramp deck, and Kieran really was its saving grace.
Yeah.
And with that gone,
saving grace for all pendulum decks, really.
What was next?
Magicians.
That's a good one. I like Magicians.
I played Magicians for a while. Now they had their Wisdom Eye, Skull Combat Joker, and they had Pendulum Call.
Yeah, all cards that were very,
very powerful cards. Make them really consistent, and then you could add things in because they had high scales. That was what's impressive about Magicians. Pendulum Call allowed them to have a very high scale on board, so they could make things like Kieran. They could make Odd Eyes. They could make
the
Apex Avion.
Yeah, I remember that build actually of that deck. It was really interesting.
You can make these really, really powerful monsters. Some of them recurred. You can make rank 7s, rank 6s.
I think that the real issue with Magicians, Magicians were good, don't get me wrong. I did not like facing the deck. But a lot like Cleforts, they were faced in a format where they had to deal with Cosmos getting progressively stronger. And, then later they kind of just got crept out by what became Pepe. So,
and Kieran got hit.
Yeah, so it's I don't know, Magicians are in a weird spot. Now currently, they are having the resurgence, you know.
And again, we got
get
the
their
calls
support
back,
back.
got the wisdom eyes back. And magicians, they also had they really set the bar as far as like having good pendulum effects.
Yeah, yeah.
Because you had Dragon Pit who could pitch and who pitched a card, you could pop a spell or
I
trap.
hated him.
Wisdom Eye, he could make himself into any scale you wanted, so you would send himself to the grave and
Reminded me of Lester
set a
Pendulum.
new one. Like they just had really useful effects in the pendulum scales, and I think that's what really helped that deck compete.
And then there's, you know, the Draco Slayers, which really isn't as much a deck as really kind of more of an engine kind of thing.
Pendulum decks.
I think it did make pendulums very good though.
I mean, come on, man, Draco Face Off.
Draco Face Off is good. Luster Pendulum could work well in any pendulum deck, and that's one of the things
Ignister.
Yeah, Ignister could. Ooh, Ignister's annoying. Non-targeting, non-destructive removal.
Special summon the Slayer from your deck.
Yeah, all of that. I mean, you know, not to mention the fact that Luster Pendulum worked well with, you know, things like Guiding Ariadne. It worked well with like anything you wanted to get another copy of in your scale and then like send to your extra deck and just filtered it all out. It worked really well. And then there's like,
It's back.
there's a cat outside of our window, and
He keeps showing up.
Oh, and then the one that I actually don't have on this list, Metal Foes. They're the kind of most recent pendulum deck. I think most people would say that it's actually a more balanced pendulum deck than, you know.
It's like, I call myself a better Ignites.
Yeah, and so speaking of Ignites, let's talk about the
honorable mention crew.
The small pendulum decks. Ignites.
Dynamist.
AMORPHAGEs.
Oh, definitely AMORPHAGEs.
Abyss Actors come to mind.
Oh, they never really had they never had a chance.
Yeah, those decks, they like cool pendulum concepts, didn't always take off.
A lot of those decks didn't get the support they would need to really matter.
AMORPHAGE was kind of the anti-meta one. It just, but like they had to like tribute stuff at the end of each turn.
They had a hard
weird
time playing.
It's hard to maintain them. Dynamist,
the most play they got was when you teched in that Goliath into your...
The blue eyes, that was fun. Dynamist, pretty cool. They recently topped some regional.
They did?
I heard like one build or no. Like one build was doing really well at YCS Pittsburgh. It didn't get top 32, but it was like at the top tables and people were freaking out. Ignites, cool concept. What are Ignites gonna do in Link format?
I don't think they're gonna do anything.
They're not gonna God.
They can't play in Link format.
That sucks. And then Abyss Actors. I don't know too much about that. Do you know more? Not really. I know they use the Abyss scripts. I know it didn't get a lot of
scripts they had there.
People didn't seem to care. So let's talk about the support then.
Our first one didn't really take off, but he had a little bit of time. Rescue Hamster, the first generic.
Yeah, now people were thinking Rescue Hamster would be good because, you know, we were used to Rescue Cat and Rescue Rabbit being good cards. Rescue Hamster, what was its effect again?
Oh, man.
Doesn't take like, it puts 2 into your extra deck, or it can.
No, you actually already had to have them in your extra deck.
Oh, and then you tributed it off, and like it would summon them or put them in your scales.
Something like that. Where like if I remember I played it with Draco Slayer, so if I had a Draco Slayer in the extra, I'd use Rescue Hamster, and he would I think he would special summon the one from the extra and one from the deck, something like that.
Yeah, I think the main problem with it.
He took setup.
He took setup, so he was slow. And he actually reminds me of the next one, which is Pot of Riches, which it sounds like, you know, people are like, oh, well, this is kind of like Pot of Avarice was, or something like that. But Pot of Riches also took a bit of setup, and you usually found that you wanted your pendulums to stay in your extra deck.
We never really could get as many. To really get the most out of something like that, you would want to get a lot of pendulums in your extra deck really fast, and then only send back the ones you didn't need. The problem was and is that usually if you get sent it to the extra deck, you're going to want to use it again next turn.
Yeah, it's like, why would you really want to use... And then Pot of Riches was also like, you can only pendulum summon that turn, so you wouldn't be able to like maybe make Xyz later with your pendulums, things like that. Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon.
Yeah, just one of our first generic searches. Actually,
yeah, I think it was the first. It came in Duelist Alliance.
That weird end phase search they love to do this last era.
Yeah, it's an okay card. I mean, in its own deck, in the Odd Eyes deck, it's a pretty decent card.
Gets the job done.
But as a generic pendulum support,
especially in a competitive situation,
it's a bit slow.
Yeah, waiting to the end phase to get that search is probably too late.
Then left field turn here, Wavering Eyes, crazy good pendulum support. Got banned, but really powerful.
Volatile, just
chainable, you know.
It would change the entire game.
In a mirror match, it was really destructive, and you know, it set up your extra deck really quickly. ARCHFIEND Eccentric.
This is
One of the better
tool.
ones.
You know, that's kind of what she is. It's a tool to be used in a pendulum deck. You pop a spell, you pop a monster.
Yeah, and then she recurs and can continue to pop them, and that's yeah. I quite liked her. What else is there?
Guiding Ariadne.
Yeah, Ariana Grande, the best. In my opinion, for a long time, I thought maybe just one of the most broken pendulums.
She searched your traps.
Yeah, searching counter traps was like kind of unheard of. At least not searching them that efficiently.
And then the fact they made Strike around the
yeah,
same time.
she happened to release and like, oh, the same set as Solemn Strike, go figure. And then she cut the costs of using them, and she comboed really well with Luster Pendulum because, you know, he could blow her up like...
And search a new copy.
And search, and then she searched, and it was really good.
Also, I always love pairing her with Sky Iris.
Yeah,
Fun little winner.
That too, Sky Iris could work. Magical Abductor, another good generic one.
Yeah, and you know, people were kind of they were sleeping on Magical Abductor when it was first announced.
Yeah, it did come out earlier than it ended up being used, right?
Yeah, because you know, it launched early, wasn't really used, and then people realized, hey, when you activate a pendulum monster, it counts as a spell.
Yeah, and then you're just like, oh, this is actually kind of busted.
The rest was history.
Because all you need to do is just use, and that was also the area where like things like Upstart, I think, and just spells in general were really good.
Yeah.
And then there's things like Pendulum Impenetrable kind of comes to mind.
Never really came into its own. Good concept.
Good concept. Later, the pendulums ended up kind of protecting themselves.
Yeah, with things like Sky Iris, Pendulum Call.
Yeah, things like that. So.
And then actually you played Wavering Eyes, so you want them to target your scales.
Yeah, you really did. So I feel like, you know, pendulums got a decent bit of support. I would say though that the reason they didn't end up being as dominant as maybe people thought was really just the counterplay.
Yeah, Konami gave the players a lot of weapons against pendulums.
Yeah, I mean, pendulums already have the kind of inherent weakness of they're counted as, you know, face-up spell and trap cards. So there were lots of ways that you could destroy these things and really just ruin a pendulum player's day.
This was the renaissance of counter traps and then spell trap removal.
Right. You know, I think of... At first we didn't have Twin Twisters, but Twin Twisters became a major dent in the pendulum playability.
Wasn't the first one, what, Galaxy Cyclone?
It was one of them, Galaxy Cyclone. It like destroyed a set card and then you could banish it.
Yeah, banish it and hit another.
Before Twin Twisters, I know people used Spell Shattering Arrow, Fairy Wind. Yeah, those cards are really good. You know, like anything that could, because like Fairy Wind and Spell Shattering Arrow just destroyed all face-up, you know, spells and traps or whatever in the field. So you could just get rid of scales fast. And when a pendulum player loses their scales...
Yeah, on their turn at that.
The reason got Unending Nightmare. It's another one.
Unending Nightmare, you know, just as a trap, continuous trap, what to do? Let you pop spells.
Yeah, multiple times a turn. So you can, anytime they try to set up their scales, just like boom. You can't set up your scales.
You can't play.
And
sorry.
That made it really hard. But the real nail in the coffin for them was honestly Anti-Spell Fragrance.
Yeah, a card that was very old and...
Yeah, I feel like kind of a mistake. Like, clearly that card was made long before pendulums, but the way that pendulums work mechanically in the game, they can't be activated under Anti-Spell Fragrance. So...
I feel like it was a bit of an oversight for them not to have banned Anti-Spell Fragrance.
Yeah, I'm honestly surprised that card still exists today.
Because, I mean, it's clearly... No one could have said anything like, why would you ban it? I needed this card. This was the best card. I always had it. No, people didn't play Anti-Spell Fragrance. It wasn't...
Yeah, it was not really anything that you played. It just became the, you can't use pendulums. You can't activate a pendulum.
Yeah, it was just, that one was a little too much for pendulums to deal with.
What do you think was really what caused pendulums to not be... Well, do you think pendulums ended up living up to the hype? Would you say?
Oh, man. No. I kept trying to play pendulum decks, and man, I just felt like this game was set up to stop them than more than to help them.
Yeah, it's like they were afraid of them getting too good, because I mean, they either were one of the top decks, but still had competition, or there was a tier 0 time that lasted like 3 weeks. So, it's like, I don't know. I think that pendulums, it's sad that now links are going to come out and just make it even harder.
You know, Konami was quick to ban pendulum cards, but not ban the things that hurt pendulums.
Yeah, they never really hit any of it. I mean, I'm not saying, like, I think that Twin Twisters is, you know, it's all right. It's really anti-spell fragrance that I feel like should have probably gotten banned or limited or something. But yeah, all in all, I think the verdict here is that pendulums, really, we didn't have as much reason to be worried about them.
Yeah.
They maybe could have been better.
I think synchros and exes impacted the game much stronger than they did. I think people were more upset over the rank 4 toolbox during Pendulum era than...
Funny enough, yeah, you're right.
...than actual pendulums.
So, what do you guys think? Do you guys feel like, you know, pendulums were as bad as they were initially made out to be? What do you see it doing like in the future with links and stuff? Is that gonna kind of be are they even gonna be able to function with,
can they play,
you know, those restrictions in place? We'd love to know. Remember, if you like this video, subscribe. We upload a new one every single day. And you can check us out on social media. We also have some Team APS t-shirts you can check out. Links to those in the description as well. I think that's gonna be it. So we'll catch you guys in the next one.